is great, but it will not always open the door. So you got to figure out what else you got until everybody can see the talent, right? None of my jobs or opportunities have ever really come from somebody saying, come on, KJ, you have all this talent. It's normally like, how do we get her off the call sheet? What do we have to do so she will just stop calling? And I'm fine with that. Because again, I know the importance of just the development piece. Long before you get to the talent, it is being present, is when you're on the job, it's not trying to do another job while you're on that job, it's giving them your full and undivided attention. That will get you so much further than people that I've seen that can sing better, that can produce better, that can write better, because nobody cares about that. Because they'll actually impart to you what you need to do if you start with a fresh kind of slate, a slate that has a level of professionalism. People will work more with that than they would somebody they think is great, talent-wise.
Welcome to another edition, another episode of Do It For The Culture podcast. It's your boy, Is D, and I'm here with artist, performance specialist, KJ Rose. Now, one thing I love about you, KJ, like, you put the hype in hyping somebody up. Like, you definitely are the one that I will go to when I need some inspiration, some advice. If I need to go out and do anything. If I need to go out and play tennis, I need to go get KJ Rose.
Boom. Let's go.
And I don't even know how to play tennis.
It's what you believe.
Exactly what you believe in. So pretty much you have worked with a lot of artists, right? Mm-hmm. You have worked with the likes of Diddy, Kelly Rowland, Justin Timberlake, Britney Spears, and you're currently working with...
Chicago's own Carl Thomas. We can't forget
Carl Thomas,
that.
Chicago.
Yes, Chicago. Common, Chicago's own. Let's go.
I love Common. That's my second favorite best.
Yeah. Who you first?
Ice Cube.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Common. We're going to edit that. No. But definitely, I appreciate you for coming. How you doing?
I'm
first?
Amazing. It's always great to be home, and I've always enjoyed just pouring into the next generation of artists and musicians and producers because, you know, we're not in New York or LA in terms of where the music business is most active, but we've got a lot of talent here, and I just wanted to make sure that, you know, our artists know that it is available, it's accessible, it's tangible, and that they don't have to reinvent the wheel. And so I am just grateful. I think for the longest time I've always wanted to figure out how I could pour into artists, but I just wanted to make sure I had enough armor and kind of productivity under my belt so that I had something to share. So it's never been because there was a lack of willingness. It's only been because I just wanted to make sure I had something that was awesome enough to give back. Exactly.
And that's pretty much what you're doing, and that's what we love to share with Do It For The Culture. For the people that don't know, you know, I know. I know all about you. So the people that don't know, giving them a little bit of your background.
Okay. From Chicago, went to school in Florida, FAMU, got a degree in business administration, and moved to New York to work for Pfizer by day. But there was such this appeal and such this draw to New York, and I didn't know what it was. Even in college, like, I only sang because I wanted to have something to give to my sorority, Delta Sigma Theta. Sorority Incorporated. So every time, you know, we did an event, I'm like, okay, I'll sing, but I never saw myself making it a real career because I didn't come from that. You know, I think we're more conservative and pragmatic in Chicago. It's like you go to grammar school, go to high school, go to college, get your degree, come back, get married. And most people, we stay in Chicago, which is nothing is wrong with that. But that means we don't get a chance to see that there are other options, you know, in addition to education. And so I think that being in New York, it just kind of offered me it provided a backdrop for these like feelings and passion for music that I was having, but I didn't know what to do with. And so Big John from now, you know, at Sony, took me under his wing and said, you know, okay, I want to put you with these managers. And I really think it was their belief in me that helped me to hone my skills, because I was just like, I just sing at events at FAMU. You know, I don't know if this constitutes as a career building desire. And so I started with First Artist Management, Dave Nelson, Erskine Isaac, out of New York, and they put me in the studio. My first track was with Kayama Griffin, and so once I heard myself on a track, then it became tangible.
Yeah.
You know, so I was like, that's me. So there was something about making the connection between what I feel passionate about in terms of music. Now, I love music, but I didn't think I should be singing it.
Right.
I was like, I'm good, but I mean, Anita Baker. And so I was just like, okay. So the more and more I started to hear myself, the more I began to see a vision that became clearer. There was more clarity in this vision, and the fact that I could say, hey, I can do that.
Right.
And so it was, me being in the studio and seeing Carl Thomas work, and, us Chicagoans, we just, wherever we are, we will build. Yeah. It's an instant, inherent community. And so he really took me under his wings, and I honed more of my skills just watching him, and he'd make sure I was going to open mics, and then it was a chance meeting that I had. Now, just so we're clear, I was doing these open mics after I had a 9-to-5, after I went to my 9-to-5.
Right.
So I was still working at Pfizer. And so I always want to make sure people know that there is a way to do this and not have to hold it by the throat, right?
Right.
So it's like we think we just got to jump out there and, without any real kind of netting to catch us. But it was, for me, it was 9 to 5. Let me just do what I don't want to do so I can get to do what I want to do later.
Exactly.
And so it was working that job that provided me with the finances that were needed to produce or put together an album.
Right.
And so I remember getting a call from a guy named Eric Payton, who managed Avant, and he was in town, and he provided me with my very first I would say for touring, my first opportunity to go on the road, because he was like, why don't you come to the studio and meet Kelly Price? And I always say that none of my big kind of breakthrough moments have been convenient, right? Because I just came from Macy's. I was leaving out of town the next day. I had bags, I had gifts, I was going to a wedding. And so nothing about that was convenient to go to 50-something to just, and I don't even know if he told me who I was coming to meet. He just said, come meet me. Right. And when I got there, Kelly Price was there.
Right.
And we just had this kind of like sisterhood moment, and that led to a week later her calling me and saying, do you want to go on tour with Puff? Right. And so she didn't hear me sing, right? So it's like, we think that we lead with that, you know? She never heard me sing. What got me the job was that I was there, and I was kind, and I was open to conversation, and I didn't come with an agenda.
Right.
And she felt my spirit. And if you lead with your spirit, it will open up every door that you needed to.
Exactly.
And a week later, she said, you want to go into a Puff? And I remember calling my mom, and I was like, okay. Well, actually, her husband called and said, you want to go? And I called my mom. I said, hey, so I got this opportunity to go on the road with Puff. And she was just like, well, what about your stock options? You just gonna leave your job? And it doesn't sound like you calling to ask me. It sounds like you calling to tell me. And I was like, I think I'm calling to let you know. And she was like, And so I ended up on the road, Puff, for about 3 months. It was myself, Carl Thomas, Kelly Price, and that's where I got my sea legs for the road. It was Puff that I watched every day go from being the chairman of this company, and then being the artist, and then managing these people, and leaving it all on the stage every single day, because nobody cares what happened the moment before.
Right.
Nobody cares that maybe the rehearsal, sound broke down or somebody fell. They just came for a show.
Yep.
And freaking Lisbon doesn't care what you do in Australia, and Australia doesn't care what you do in Germany.
Right.
Everybody wants a dope show.
Yep.
And so that was where my training ground for a level of work ethic, because I saw him every day. As much as he is, just very energetic and enthusiastic, it's undergirded by a work ethic. That talent is just the bonus, right? That is what secures the talent and propels you. But I watched that every night. So that was really like, that was I would say I was getting my MBA.
Right.
That was my first year getting my MBA with Puff. But before that, in terms of my first professional gig on somebody's record, it was with Heavy D. again, that moment wasn't convenient.
Right.
They called me and they said, can you be in the studio? This was like 12 o'clock at night. Can you come to the studio? I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
But I keep saying yes.
Yeah.
And the yes leads me to the bigger opportunity, to the
Yep.
next opportunity.
Yep.
And so I was like, okay, I took a cab over to the studio. It's Heavy D. I sang this, I want your body. And then when you touch me, driving in your Caddy, you can be my big daddy.
Well, definitely. Heavy D. Rest in peace.
Yes, and he was just such a awesome support and champion for what I was doing. And so that was my first one. And, you know, then after that, it was with Big, a song called Play a Hater, A Life After Death. And I started singing background for all these rappers before the singing, rapping thing became a thing.
Yeah.
There
See?
were extra awesome singers that sang on tracks. And so, you know, and I think it was like Kelly Price, Lil Mo, Faith, you know, everybody was doing background,
Yep.
you know. And so at that point, I don't think that they thought the Heavy D song would be a single, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, again, the way God works, literally, I think I got a call from Dio Blyden at Universal, like, yo, come be in the video. I
Yeah.
get out there, I get to the front door. I told you the story, and they were like, well, what you doing?
Right.
And I'm like, somebody get Dio. Everybody, this is happening. I'm the girl. I sang. But
Right.
nobody cared. And so I remember, you know, him just being like, you know, I'm sorry. It just didn't go, you know, the way I planned. And so imagine just walking up to the Universal lot and it's raining, and I'm thinking this is going to be a moment for me.
Right.
And so to be turned away, I was just, all my feelings just were gone. They dropped. And we flew back to New York. It wasn't like I was down the street. Like I had to get back on a plane without having been in this video.
Right.
And then to get home and, you know, 2 weeks later, they say, hey, can you come do the remix
Yeah.
for Have? And so in my feelings, I was like, I'm good.
Right,
This
right,
is
right.
my inside voice.
Yeah.
I'm good. And then I realized, okay, well then, what are the repercussions of you being good?
Yeah.
Right? They're going to call somebody else.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you get to sit over here and say, they didn't do me right.
Yeah.
Because of something that happened last week that nobody cares about anymore.
Yep.
All they would know is, oh, here's her voice again.
Right.
And so that's what I had to just kind of get to a point where I understood that it was bigger than my one emotional moment. And that led to me doing more background. So then it became AZ, A+, Capone Noriega, Dead Prez, Common. And so it was, had I allowed that moment to define me of being turned away,
Yeah.
you know, 1 week,
Yeah.
when the next opportunity was full of blessings
Yeah.
the next week, then I would have missed out.
See? And that's all about taking advantage of those opportunities, being
Yeah.
in those moments, and like you said, just saying yes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, being the one out of a million that said, hey, I'm going to take this
Yeah.
opportunity and run with it.
Yeah.
So pretty much, how did you transition from this musical background,
Mhm.
right? You didn't want to sing, but now you're on these records,
Right.
these big records,
Right.
and then now all of a sudden, to this day,
To this
being
day.
a performance artist specialist.
Yeah.
Like, how did that transition?
So, you know, when you're a background singer, you are enjoying the fruits of your labor every single day,
Right.
because you might do one song in Monaco, and then you have the rest of the week to kick it, you know. And so it's super prestigious. It is opening your world up to new worlds that you just didn't even know existed. I'm expanding, and so, but then you start realizing, I think, once you get to a point where you see that the learning curve is diminishing, right?
Yeah.
It's constant pivots.
Yeah.
You got to make constant pivots. And even though I was comfortable in this world,
Yeah.
I got to a point where I didn't really have to audition, you know, for other background gigs,
Yeah.
because once you have proven to one music director that you have the work ethic, the professionalism, and then, you know, the bonus is that you may also have the gift, then that kind of leads you to the next opportunity. And so whenever somebody was like, oh, they're holding audition, I'd be like, I'm good. You know, because you just get used to that. And once you build that rapport and build those relationships.
Yeah.
And so I started to feel like now you're in a comfort zone.
Yeah.
And if you continue to stay in the back, you will not trust yourself
Right.
to move to the forefront.
Yep.
And so I was like, take a chance on yourself. You know, the thing about it is nobody pays you to work on your own thing initially. So it was like, it's comfortable to get caught in the background where you're like, oh, here's your check. Okay, great. Blah, blah, blah. And so, and the artist, and so you start taking on, you know, at one point you might start thinking that this is about you. You know, when you get all these applause and you're going to different cities and they're yelling, and you got to understand that's not your life. That's their life.
Right.
And so when I started to realize, okay, my life is predicated on whether they work or not. And that's not a good space to be in, because when I turn 85, I don't want to have just one skill set of being a background singer.
Right.
And so I realized that, you know, I may have to jump off this ship, because now I've gotten all the information I needed. And, you know, what is that next pivot that I make? And so I decided to go work for J Records as the nighttime receptionist, so that I can work on my own thing. So that was really my thought process. Again, doing something that I don't necessarily want to do so that I can put my own album out. And regardless of what it does, it's mine, and I put the work into it. And so I was his nighttime receptionist, and, you know, artists would come through the door, Alicia Keys and who else was, I mean, so many people, Carlos Santana and Usher. And so you watch these people come to the door, and I want to scream, oh my God, I'm an artist too. But sometimes people can only see you through one lens. And so I was just like, okay, I'm going to sit behind here and I'm just going to keep doing, because now I'm putting my album together from 11 until 5, and then I'm going to work here from 6 to 10. And so then I got to a point where they said, well, can you work for Clive Davis as one of his assistants? There were two of us, Paula, myself, and Dina. And I was just like, no, thank you. I mean, because that will require me to have to, like, put my own stuff to the side, and I'm not ready to do that. And so, but then I took another thought, and I remember Cynthia Johnson, CJ, my sister, who was at Columbia and J Records, you know, really talked me through it. And I was like, no matter what amount of information I collect here, it will be so invaluable no matter what area of the industry I decide to go in. So I just swallowed it. I was like, okay. So I went into working with Clive as his assistant, taking calls, you know, pouring tea, cutting apples, you know, running errands. And sometimes I'd be burning up inside because I never told him that I sang, right? Because I wanted him to trust me in the position I was hired for, right? So it was like, it was ushering in first, this is who I am, before I came in like, I'm a singer, and you should know about it. And so it was, you know, months of just playing my position. And he didn't, and for every tea that I poured and delivered, I wanted to make sure we had a conversation. So whether that was, hey, why did you choose this as the single? Or, you know, what is it that you think about this artist? Da, da, da. I wanted to make sure we were going to have an exchange, even if he didn't know it. Now, this was about me. You know? And so he didn't find out that I sang until I ended up going back on tour with Janet Jackson, a promo tour. And I remember walking into the office because Paula had taken in the resignation letter. And he was like, in the midst of a meeting, and he was like, does everybody know where Kiana's going? And he said, she's going to dance with Janet. I was like, well, sing. He was like, sing with Janet. And so, you know, in that moment, I realized that he knew my name. He could say it clearly. And that he had just been observing. And it was so much sweeter in that moment. And so from there, I went back on tour with Janet. I came off. I put my own album out while I was working at Sundance Channel. By day, I utilized every department there. And I just understood how to utilize the resources that were right within my reach. So so often we're like, we're trying to get there. So here doesn't work. But maybe here is what you use to catapult you to there. And so whether it was creative services, whether it was marketing, they were helping me put together my tagline, helping me put together the graphics for my album. And that is really how All Heart No Regrets came to be. It was birthed out of me working at AMC Networks and Sundance Channel.
Yeah.
And which is again the 9 to 5. So I put my album out. Well, before I put my album out, I remember Rhymefest was signed to Mark Ronson at the time when I was at J Records, and he was like, "When are you putting something out?" And I was like, "Oh, it's got to be perfect. I'm not gonna put anything out until it's perfect." He was like, "You're only as perfect as this moment. And there can't be a second album until you put out a first album. So what are you waiting on?" And I think we get so caught up in judging ourselves, right? And I judged myself for 10 years.
Right.
And all I really had to do was say, okay, this is where I am now. Give myself the space to say, you'll be somewhere different in the next hour.
Yep.
So if you're consistently growing, you got to continue to have an output that allows you to get to the next album. And so for 10 years, I was like, it's got to be perfect.
Yeah.
And finally, he was the one that broke that wall where I said, okay, I've got to believe in this. So I put the album out, I toured, and I was able to really just, CJ and myself, and she got me a lot of my radio dates, and the song was playing, and just to hear your music on the radio, there's something about that. And then I was like, okay, I think I'm good. I was an artist. And I don't think I need 10 albums to be an artist.
Right,
and so
right.
I think for me, it became, the biggest thing was complete the assignment.
Right.
I had to complete the assignment. I had to get to the other side of making sure that this desire, this passion, that I finished it. Finish the task and then move on. And I didn't know what that next thing was.
Yeah.
So sometimes we hold on to one thing because we're afraid if we let go, we don't know where we're going to land.
Exactly.
But the letting go leads to the landing.
Exactly.
And I didn't know that at the moment. I was just like, but I've been an artist and that's how people have identified me. So where else do I go after that? And I remember record labels, specifically J Records. So now it's coming full circle. Carolyn Williams at J Records said, I need you to work with an artist here. And I want you to help them with their performance, because it's interesting because they loved my performance. They loved the way I projected on stage, but didn't nobody like my music. That's okay. I didn't take it personally. So what they needed from me was another gift that I had that I wasn't really giving a lot of worth to, of value to. And so again, I said yes. Despite me wanting to be like, but I'm an artist. Listen to my music again. They said, we want you to come in and just help as a consultant. And I said yes to that and realized that, oh my God, this could be something else. And and so initially I remember some parents or clients would say, you're so good. Why didn't you make it in the music industry? And I was like, why didn't I make it? And it would just hit me in a place. And initially, I was a little saddened by that, because I was like, did I not go long enough? Did I not go hard enough? But what I realized was my time as an artist was the necessary step to get to my lot as a performance specialist, because nobody will believe you if you don't speak the language of an artist. I have the heart of an artist now because I am an artist. And so then when those, when I get more people that say, why didn't you make it? Now my response is, I did, you just missed it. And so you got to figure out what victory is for you. You got to figure out what that win is. Are you staying in something because you're allowing other people to keep you in a box because their lens is very limited? Do you now stay in that lens because maybe that is what made you feel valuable or validated? And so I had to break out of what everybody else saw me as. And now I had to shift their thinking to, you know what, I'm good as a singer, but I see my divine calling, and I see when God is working, when I can impact people instantly when we get into a session, and this is what I'm meant to be doing. But I couldn't have got here without this. That was the longest response ever, I know. But that's how I got to coaching.
And you got into coaching, and now you're working with Lil Nas X, right? Which is, he's a superstar now. Yeah, he was a superstar then. We just found out. The world just found out he's a superstar now. Now the world is into him now. So, did you watch the BET Awards?
Did I?
What?
Yes. I was in Florida, and it was just, it's the hardest thing ever, because I always say that, you know, a lot of times we are kind of thrusted into these like social events, and you know, we want to say that we're doing something. So like, of all the BET awards that have happened before, you know, when I was there, and people be like, oh, your contemporaries, your peers, what are you up to? And I'm like, oh, I'm doing this. Nothing that's relevant to them, right? And so the year that it could potentially be relevant to somebody, God was like, but I need you over here.
See?
So after I left from speaking with you guys, I went back to LA and really just pushed more confidence, pumped more confidence and energy into Lil Nas, but I didn't stay for the BET Awards because some dear friends were having, we were having a girls trip, and that was our time, and I was like, I'm gonna compromise a day of that, but I can't cancel that, and so I'm gonna just give him all the love and all he needs, and he'll be ready. And so, you know, the year that it could have been like, that's my boy, I'm out here, let me tell you what I'm doing. It wasn't about that. It wasn't about, the work spoke for itself. And it was like, that was the growth in it, where I didn't really have to say anything, and nor did I have to be there. Did I need to be there? Because he and I have a personal contract. And he is so intelligent and inspiring. And what I love about his story, and the reason I believe he continues to get blessed, is because in his movement and in his journey, he's blessing other people. You know? So young Theo, who did the track in Amsterdam, he was like, I need him to be in a video. You know? And, you know, this new guy coming into this industry, this robust industry, to have a voice that says, hey, you know, he's the reason I'm here. Not forgetting. And that's why, you know, you see young Theo in the video. But then let's go even further. I mean, there was a young family there that, you know, I really took to. It was a young girl, and I posted her on my Insta, and one of the things that the mom said is, hey, we're going through a tough time. Whatever you can do to help, whatever resources. The day before, I had gone to speak at a young woman's shelter and home, and you know, afterwards they were like, well, you know, can we give you an honorarium? I was like, no, I'm good. Like, to see these kids smile and feel important was enough for me. I was only there for 30 minutes. And so when that girl said, hey, I need help, I said, oh, I know how you can help. And again, that was God orchestrating. That was the yes that was not attached to any money. It was the yes that circled back, and they were able to help this family. And I told Lil Nas X that. I said, your journey is bigger than you. I said, we thought we were there to just get the video going and, you know, for the visibility of it all. But what we were really there to do was to provide them with a home and provide them with joy and peace. And so when you take yourself out of the fame of it all, the lights, you know, because the best moments are when the lights are not on. You know, and I've not shared this, you know, because I wanted to make sure, and I still, you know, hope that I'm protecting the family, but I just really only shared it to show you that the reason he's winning, yes, it's about the song, but it's also about the blessing and the wins that he provides everybody else.
It's his human.
Yes. And that showed you that it's a very level playing field. Like the entry point, where at once it was governed by the A&Rs, you can be in Idaho and go from somebody's couch to go to the BET Awards or the CMAs or cross genres or be genre-less. Anyway, and get Billy Ray Cyrus. So, you know, I can talk about this all day.
He definitely turned up the BET Awards. I'm proud of his performance. And then also, speaking of performances, were there any other performances besides Lil Nas X that you saw that you were like, okay, that definitely matches what I look for in stage presence?
So much. Cardi, Offset, you know, Offset doing something that we hadn't seen before. Again, stepping out of what we think the standard box is. I love that. I love how her is unapologetically her. You know, and she doesn't try. But if we could just go back to where her began.
Yeah.
You know, we think that it happens overnight, that she came from nowhere. I remember when she was Gabby
Okay.
at J Records. You know, so it is the constant pivot, it's the constant
Yep,
reinvention,
yeah.
right? And so it's like we want to get to a point where we're like, you don't know about me,
Right.
but that's not our job. Our job is to keep working, to keep honoring the work.
Yeah.
When it's time for you to be elevated,
Yep.
you will be.
Yeah.
And that's what I love. Every time I watch, I don't care what she sings, because I know where she started, and we think that, you know, maybe in the last 2 years, when I know it's been in the last 10,
Right.
her and Jeff Robinson have been planting seeds for years for
Yeah.
this point, which is why she will stay in this elevated position,
Yep.
because she has built a foundation that will keep her there.
Yep.
So anyway,
Oh yeah, she's rocking.
Yeah.
And then Mary J. Blige performance,
so
the Queen.
and the moments that I spent with my girls as we're jumping around,
Yeah.
rapping to Method Man and Lil Kim
Yeah.
in Destin, Florida, off the water, that can't be beat. Like, that was like being at the BET Awards.
Right,
And so,
right.
you know, it's like, I remember when we were on tour with Mary.
Yeah.
I was singing with Carl Thomas, and we were opening up for Mary J. Blige. I'm gonna say that again so you can edit that. I was singing with Carl Thomas. We were opening up for Mary J. Blige,
Right.
and to see just her constant reinvention,
Yeah.
you know, to still be able to stand and move and dance and
Yeah.
still be relevant,
Yep.
and you know, those were like years. So I have such great examples of, you know, this didn't just happen.
Right.
You know, this
Right.
is not happening overnight. But what happens is because we're now in a world that's based on instant gratification.
Yep.
And so,
Yep.
you know, people don't show you their process. You know, you just see their end result. But you have no idea, as much as you want to commit to the end result, you've got to commit to the process.
Right.
So opening up for her every night and seeing, you know, what that looked like, and knowing that every show
Yeah.
was its own inspiration. You can't recycle inspiration.
You
Yesterday's
can't.
show ain't got nothing to do with today's show, and nobody cares if you fell off the stage yesterday. You get back on, and so that was my training ground.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, it was. We were all just exploding with like memories, you
Yeah.
know, from where we were when these songs came out. And so,
Exactly.
yeah, I turned into a rapper that day too.
Yeah. I think we all was like having our own concerts
Yeah.
in front. All right, so the biggest challenges that you were facing in the music industry.
I think there are a couple. It is pre-approving myself before I go in to ask for other people's approval, which has nothing to do with what the industry is doing or not doing. It's me changing my perspective. I think that initially it was the most challenging because I had to see myself as an artist and create music as opposed to just asking someone else to validate me as an artist.
Right.
And secondly, the understanding that artist development is one of the biggest components and one of the best assists that you can give a record label, a promoter, a manager, is that you have the ability to have longevity because people consistently request you to perform, and that you offer them something different that they can't get while just listening to the album. So I think people knowing that you don't get from A to Z by just jumping up and declaring that you're an artist. There is work that needs to be involved. And a lot of times, you know, what I love best about working with Kelly Rowland, I was on a show called Chasing Destiny, was that when she finished seeing me work, she said, I need this for myself. So someone that is as successful as she is to still say, I still want to keep maintaining. LeBron James has maintenance. He's still on the court. Everybody that you see really kind of being at the apex and the top of their careers have understood that there is a maintenance and a work ethic that must take place long before you get to the thing, the shiny moment that everybody sees. So artist development, I just cannot say that enough, will get you in more doors. And just your ability to understand what performance looks like, not just the art of performing, but the being of performance.
Right.
And that takes vulnerability. That takes, you know, not just going out there and thinking that, you know, if I run back and forth on the stage, people see the activity, but I need meaningful activity. What makes it count? Why do you care? Why should I care? And so artist development, and then also seeing more women at the helm
Right.
of these businesses, which we're starting to see now.
Yeah.
But just and us being more collective, us having a community of producers, and Jazzy, I watched her and she wrote Billy Ray Cyrus's piece for Old Town Road, but she's one of just so many like talented women and producers and musicians, and so now I think we're in a space where that is growing, and the takeover
Exactly. The takeover is definitely coming.
Yeah.
But in closing, so what's next for the Rose Effect brand, and then also yourself, career-wise?
We were just talking about this. For the Rose Effect, it's funny because I didn't even see this coming in terms of speaking more at schools and speaking more at corporations, because I have declared that we are all artists, whether you're the corporate artist or the creative artist, wherever you take up the most space, that is your stage. And so, that declaration has led me into working with corporations and media brands like Pandora and Google and South by Southwest and Tridestin Studios. And so that has just opened doors. The minute I shifted my thinking and became more expansive and what the Rose Effect is about, and just helping people to occupy their space and to just bloom, like and understanding that I'm not here to fix anybody. My job is to meet you where you are, so that you understand and that there may be some spaces that are just unresponsive. It doesn't mean they don't exist. Right. So everybody has exactly what they need to be successful in this game. And so I want to do more of that. I just left Ghana, and I was in Australia and Ireland and London, and I want to travel the world and impact artists and performers across the world. So for the Rose Effect, it's just to infiltrate and penetrate spaces that didn't see me coming.
Exactly.
And for KJ Rose, it's to be able to create a balance between those other things in life that I want to do, and making sure that I continue to one second. I don't know what I want to do. For KJ Rose, I would say for KJ Rose, the goal is to create balance every day, to know where I can be the most impactful, to know when to pull back, to know when to push harder, to continue to add armor to me, so that no matter who I'm working with, no matter what space, I always have something to offer. To remember that I'm still in the service business and that it's bigger than me. So every day I make a choice to listen and to observe and to just know that my steps are being ordered, and that I'm just here to help people occupy not only their space, but find their light, own their light, and continue to be a light.
And more music.
For me?
Yeah.
Okay. One day I'm going to continue to write more music. So and I want that to come organically. I want that to, but it's in me. I got like 2 and a possible more songs in me. So stay tuned. Also, we're going to be doing some Bloom camps across the nation. So stay tuned for that. And I am writing a performance guide, because I think there's so much. It's funny because even in my own thinking, I was scared of the word book, because I'm like, book. But I wanted to have a tangible solution for artists that I speak to and may not be able to get to for another 6 months. It is the precursor to the tangible body of work, right? It is the things, they are the things that you have to become vulnerable to long before you try to present a body of work to the masses. And so stay tuned. The Rose Effect, a performance guide to delivering, that's not it. The Rose Effect, a guide to delivering the performance of your life.
And where can they follow you? Where can they reach you at? How can the people get connected?
The people can connect with me on Instagram, which is KJ Rose Effect, which is the same for Twitter. And for Facebook, it's Kiana KJ Rose Henson. My mama named me Kiana Henson. And if you have questions, I will get back to you in a timely manner at contact@kjrose.com.
So guys, make sure you hit KJ up with any questions. Make sure you guys are tuning in to everything that she has going on, especially with the Rose Effect coming to hit them. And then make sure you guys follow us and more at Do It For The Culture 2 on Instagram. And then follow me at RealLizD on Instagram. Also
follow him. Dope entrepreneur building something in the shy that's going to transcend the shy. So shout out to you for being persistent and making this happen.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And then also shout out to Patrice from the Bassline group.
Yes.
And then also a shout out to Taz from Taz Entertainment. And yeah, we here.
Yeah,
we're
here.
We're in the
Thank
building.
You for having me. Thank you, Patrice. Thank you, D. Thank you, SAE. Boom.
Shout out to SAE.
Do it for the culture.
Do it for the culture. We out.
We out.
Salute.
Hey, I see you.